open session. The time is 7:47 p.m. Dr. Nivens?
All right, board. So as we said before we recessed, we will turn it over to PASA, and we'll talk about our Phalen attendance boundary zones.
Thank you very much. So you have in front of you some potential zoning options that we call starter options in order to facilitate the process of sort of narrowing down and illustrating to you, getting you started for going through potential attendance zone options for the opening of Phalen. So can some of you see this on your screens, or are we all working off of the, all on that screen?
No, ma'am, we're all working off the big screen here.
Okay. Then I will focus on zooming in a little bit more so that you can see better. But just to give you some perspective, to get you oriented, this is 59, of course. This is Hutchinson. The black dot is the Hutchinson School, and this is Arredondo School. So, and this is Phalen, where it is under construction. What you see here are the current attendance zones for Hutchinson and Arredondo, and these are the projected number of resident students projected to live in each of these attendance zones if Phalen was not to open. So as you can see, we're bumping up on 900 students in Hutchinson and over 1,000 in Arredondo. Let me preface this by saying that these numbers came from our demographic study from last year. We actually, it turns out, for the first time in 20 years or so, did not present to you last February because of the Great Freeze. But we did the study, and all of the work has been done and given to the district. We are in the process of updating this study right now, and we'll be presenting it to you next month in February. Now, I have gone through with our preliminary numbers and compared to these numbers, and I will tell you in general terms where things are different, where they're looking different, and spoiler alert, everything that's growing is growing faster, right? That's not a surprise. So there are some areas that have grown a little bit faster than we anticipated last year. But again, in all of those areas, it's nothing new. It's just that it's coming on faster than we anticipated, and so the need is even greater for this new school. So with that, I'm going to walk you through my process of starting this, these options. And basically, it was the idea of trying to carve off the eastern portion of Hutchinson to attend Hutchinson, and the western portion of Hutchinson, and pulling some of Arredondo into Phalen. So the first option number one, the potential Phalen attendance zone is shown in orange. And
Can I interrupt right quick?
Yes, sir.
So, board, in your packet, the reason why we did your packet different this month is because I wanted you to be able to pull out these options and put them side by side, and not have to turn a lot of pages in the booklet. And so that's why the loose leaf.
These numbers that you're looking at represent resident students projected to live in each of these zones. These will not match necessarily what you know to be the enrollment at these schools because of transfers in and out. The transfers are not significant, but anything that you don't recognize, it's because of students attending a different school. But we're demographers, so we project where people are going to live. So just to also give you a little bit more orientation, this area is Veranda. This is Del Webb, so there are no students in this area. But all of this along here is Veranda. So that was our first. Do you need a point? Do you want me to use a pointer?
Yeah, could you use the laser pointer? Maybe someone else can help, as you're using your mouse, someone can use the laser pointer.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So
Oh, that's better.
this is Veranda, all along here, and I can actually show you if you'd rather see it like this. This green area is Veranda. The blue area is Sweetgrass. So Sweetgrass is Del Webb. It has no students. So I'm going to turn that off because it's busy and go back to option 1. So in this option, again, as I mentioned, I pulled the River Park and River Park West, which is over here, the eastern portion of Hutchison. That all stays at Hutchison, and basically we bumped right up to the edge of Hutchison for this zone and took all of Veranda into Phalen. Now, I know that your first thought is going to be on this neighborhood right here, and why is that neighborhood being zoned to Phalen if it's so close to Hutchison, right? And the reason for this I want to show you. I'm going to turn off these colors and turn on the aerial so that you can see that these houses do not have direct access to Hutchison. These houses all empty out onto Wildwood Park Road here, and then out onto Richmond Parkway here, or up to Veterans Trails Parkway here and out to Richmond Parkway. So while it looks like these houses back up to the Hutchison School, and they do back up to it, you could throw a ball over the back fence of some of these into the parking lot, but the access to those schools is not direct. And the reason that I suggested in option 1 putting leaving those in or sending those to Phalen is because that's all Veranda. That's all one master plan community, and under the principles that you have just been talking about, and the practice for the past 20 years at least has been elementary schools keeping neighborhoods together, keeping subdivisions together. So, so under this option, we would have, in my opinion, pretty balanced enrollment among these 3 schools. This is the Arredondo down here would be taking everything on the south side of 59 to Arredondo, leaving everything else the same, just carving off a piece of Arredondo north of 59 and a piece of Hutchison that's right around the school, and all of Veranda to go to Phalen. That is option 1. Okay. And so
Any questions on option 1?
So you're with the option 1, looking at Arredondo. Currently, I know you said it's not what you estimate. It's 662. So our current enrollment there will be 1,006 right now. So that would take estimated 400.
approximately, yes.
Can you go back to that first map you showed with the numbers that showed if Phalen didn't exist? Okay, so 1,020.
That's right. Okay, so because I know that it's a question, I showed option 2 is the same for Arredondo and the same for the western part of Phalen. The only difference is this part of Veranda that we just talked about. There are about 60 students there currently, projected to grow to about 80 or so. And so in option 2, I sent those kids to Hutchison in case there is some public outcry that we live so close to Hutchison and you're sending us down to Phalen. Yes, sir?
And so on option 2, I asked Mr. Junty and his team, to drive that to see what would that actually look like for those students to remain in Hutchison.
And the difference in option 1 for them to remain there, it was about a 2 or 3 minute drive, and to move from this area over to Phalen was between 4 and 6 minutes depending on traffic. So you're only looking at a delta of about 2 minute difference moving from them going to Hutchison as far as and them going to Phalen. So while as the crow flies it's short, there's a couple minute difference as they travel the roadways, but it's not significant. 2 to 3 minute difference to go to Phalen.
What about walking? Is it much of a walking? Like thoughts
Just
about
looking at the
walking?
aerial, I would assume that the walkers would not be able to cut through.
They'd have to go all the
Yeah,
way around?
There is
Okay, so
there
it
is
probably
a
wouldn't.
cutout, and that's what Chief Warren was saying. Where am I pointing?
I just think about a lot of the walking families at our local elementary. I didn't know if,
Right.
That maintain that power lines.
So it looks like right now, if they walk, they would have to walk along the main thoroughfare on the road, like on the sidewalk. They couldn't cut across, cut through the field. Doesn't look like there's a walking path there.
It does not.
Okay.
okay, so that, somebody wouldn't, I mean, I'm just thinking if somebody said we just wouldn't want to walk, but if it's not realistic, then it wouldn't matter.
It would-
Okay.
In my opinion, it's not realistic from this neighborhood, certainly, because there's no outlet.
And these are all the backs of houses.
Right. There's no. Okay. So let's move along to option 3. Options 1 and 2 are very similar. Option 3 takes into account the fact that we're back to current zones here. Thomas is also projected to grow and to be overcrowded in a few years. And so I knew that there might be some discussion about should we use this opportunity to provide some relief for Thomas as well. And so option 3 takes that into account. The reason that I'm showing, well, and so I'm showing Williams on here with its current attendance zone as well, because Williams is very underutilized. And Thomas is overcrowded, and Arredondo and Hutchinson are all very overcrowded. So this subdivision right here that I'm circling in Planning Unit 44B is Summer Lakes. And it currently attends Arredondo, and all of the other options 1 and 2, it stayed at Arredondo. This Planning Unit 44K is Rivers Run at the Brazos and Rivers Mist. And it attends Thomas. So the logical way to relieve Thomas would be to move 44K out of Thomas. And it has about 250 students in it. So from what I just showed you, 250 students additional won't fit in Arredondo under options 1 and 2. Let's just show 2 for this purpose. So we had 660, 650 students in Arredondo under options 1 and 2. There's not room to move all 250 of these students at Rivers Run at the Brazos and Rivers Mist. So that would mean likely moving 44B out of Arredondo and up to Williams. And so that's what I have proposed in option 3. And so this 44K has turned from pink to turquoise to go to Arredondo. This 44B has turned from turquoise Arredondo to yellow Williams. And I recognize that this might not be a popular move, but I felt like it was important to at least bring it to your attention as a way to better utilize an underutilized school. And it's the only way that I can see in the near term to provide some relief to Thomas, although it does bring Thomas down pretty significantly. So, but again, then that would have Thomas and Williams at about equivalent utilization.
So, Mr. Hunt, this is an example to answer one of your questions earlier. The last topic was, how do we get all of our elementaries back in alignment? If the board chose to send this option forward to the committee to rank, then you see we are able to put 1, 2, 4 more campuses back into alignment. And if you look at this, I think the only campus that will be out of alignment in 10 years is Thomas. The rest will stay. Actually, they'll be right under at 797. So in 10 years, all these campuses will still be under the current, under the principles that the board's going to consider next month.
And the long-term growth that's projected in Thomas is down in the south, which is the George Ranch, George Foundation. And not George Ranch, but George Foundation. And so any potential growth that happens down there, if it happens, will have a potential site for a school. And, you know, that will be big growth if it happens.
Is this one that we recently rezoned? Or, I mean, some of these schools, didn't we recently rezone some of these?
Secondary,
Secondary.
for the Randall Wright complex, yeah.
Okay. I was thinking we rezoned, okay. Okay. Okay, okay. Maybe that was
I
it.
thought Ms. Danziger said Carter as well.
I
was
thought we
not
did Carter. Okay,
Carter.
okay. I was thinking Carter, I thought Thomas maybe. Can't remember.
I guess a good question would be, have any of these been rezoned in
know.
the last couple of years?
You just
That we
hate
know
to,
these five?
hate to hit them again.
Yeah.
Kinda thought
Yeah, but
Thomas.
I can't hear what the team. What are you guys saying?
When?
With
How long ago was
Culver.
that, Kevin, when
With
Thomas was
Culver.
impacted?
When Culver, but not this part of Thomas, I don't think. Was it this planning unit?
When
River-
was that?
With Culver, when
That's
Culver
my
opened.
neighborhood. It was not impacted with Culver open.
Okay.
My
Was
neighborhood.
it 2018? So I feel like we went to the opening when I first got on board in 2019, so that would have been 2018.
Footprint, yeah. It was adjusted. My neighborhood was not.
Are there plans right now to have another elementary school in the Thomas area to relieve that school?
Not immediately, no. The plans for a school in the area would be down in this, the next school in this general area is down here in order to relieve, I think Meyer and, Culver. I can look it up. It's been a year since we did this, you guys.
So none of these we're saying have been rezoned in the last 3 years?
Actually, I'll look that up. That's
Okay.
more important. I do have that. I have that planning.
That would be great to be able to fix a lot with that.
5, yeah. And for the next, 10 years,
So,
yeah.
so if I understand this right, we're gonna decide these three or modify them and then give it to a public committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then they are gonna come back and make their recommendation to the board of which of these to adopt. Is that correct?
They're gonna rank the options. So the board's charge tonight is, the board's gonna send the charge tonight. They're gonna choose one of these options, all three of these options, two of these options, whatever you wanna send forward to the committee. The committee will meet and rank them, and then send that ranking back to the board for its consideration. And so that committee hadn't been made up yet. It's only of the individuals that will be impacted of the choices that the board is gonna send forward. And then the board members who are impacted by this change will also appoint two members to that committee as well.
The answer to your question about rezoning of 44B and 44K, the data I have with me tonight only goes back to 2019, but they have not been rezoned since 2019. And in my memory, Culver was the last rezoning of that area, and it did not impact Rivers Run at the Brazos.
So that's helpful. What did you say with on option 3, you said that's not gonna be popular?
Moving Summer Lakes to Williams. This is
And
Summer
what,
Lakes.
that's 44B?
44B, yes. And it is about 300 students.
And why is it not popular, in your opinion?
I don't live here, but I have heard that, that Williams is a less desirable school and that rezoning to it would not be popular. But I really don't have any information.
Board, I know I was, of course, I wasn't here, but I was told that in the last conversations, that community was very vocal about,
Yes.
about things they want to see happen. And so I think that's another reason why it may not be a popular move, or considered to be a popular move.
So the major pro of option 3 would be being able to align 5 schools.
And I guess another question is, when we send these options to this committee, they're probably not gonna know the importance of doing something like this. The importance of this would be beyond just a rezoning, you know, this could be for the future of what we're really trying to do with doing 5 schools and how this could impact a lot of things.
So we would make sure that
We need to make sure they
educated.
know.
Well,
this-
Mr. Junty is gonna head up that committee,
Yeah.
and Mr. McKeever will be there, and so,
Yeah. I mean, they
we'll
may
make
not-
sure, we'll make sure
They
we
may
have.
not care, because
Right.
they're dealing with, you know, their kids that
Right.
are, but that's
But
pretty.
in the future, they need to understand that we're gonna try to align all the schools
Yeah.
anyway, so it's probably gonna happen regardless if it's
Yeah.
now or another
Right.
time, yeah.
But again, the board will make the final decision.
Yeah.
And so that's why this committee will only rank the options. The
Okay.
committee won't send forward one option and say, this is the one we want. The committee will say, you know, of the 3, this is the one we prefer the first, second, and third.
Gotcha.
And then the board would make the final decision on that.
Okay.
So if we only send them one,
It is, if the board
They can rank
wishes,
down.
if the board, it's at the board's will, you can only send one if you like.
Ma'am, I have a question. Have you ranked these in what you think is best as a professional? Like, option 1 is really what we would really recommend if we were asked, but here's 2 others just in case.
Not really, because I wouldn't present anything to you that I couldn't feel like I could support, right? So my opinion is that keeping Veranda together as a single master plan community, I prefer that over carving it up in order to save somebody a 2-minute drive time. That's my opinion. So that's a preference of option 1 over option 2. The decision about option 1 versus option 3, it really comes down to what you've been discussing tonight as far as better utilizing the facilities that you have. We have a lot of clients that are facing, they don't have the high growth that you have, and so when they have underutilized schools, it's very jarring. Or they have high growth, kind of like you, I mean, you have high growth everywhere in the district. Other districts have high growth only in, you know, on one end. And so it's always difficult to go to the public and ask for more money or support for building new facilities if you have underutilized facilities elsewhere in the district. And this district is so large geographically that it's infeasible to bus students across the district to underutilized campuses. But when the opportunity presents itself to have a nearby campus be better utilized, then it's worth the discussion.
so you said the pro over 1 over 2 is keeping Veranda together, you keep the whole neighborhood together.
That's correct.
And 3, they would also be together?
Yes.
And there's no other scenario that makes sense to you as far as, I mean, we don't want 21 maps like we have for the high school rezone.
Right, and so that's why I brought this database with me tonight, so that if you want to ask me specific questions about what if we move this planning unit over there, I can tell you the impact of it. But the geography of the roads and the neighborhoods and the schools, there just aren't that many options. And let me also preface any further discussion with those of you that have been on the board for years and heard our presentations, you know that we do everything based on planning units. So we have, we aggregate all of this data by planning unit. So I can very easily tell you there are 200 kids in this planning unit now, and we're projecting it to grow to 250. And if you move it over here, this is what it would look like. But if you want to start carving out parts of that planning unit, I can tell you how many kids live there, and I can ballpark it for you, but I can't instantly show you what that zone would look like if you start breaking up planning units. But again, most of the planning units in this area are based on subdivision boundaries, and so that they are drawn like that for a reason, because we know that you don't prefer to break up subdivisions.
Another question. So, if we were to vote for option 3, that's an option that would, you know, some folks might not like, and I get it, and I would only want to do that one time. So I wouldn't want us to have to come back a few years later and, oh, the numbers are wrong. We thought this would last 10 years, but it's not, and then we're constantly moving the lines. So my question is, the numbers that you present, this is based on information that you have based on land purchases and plans that developers have right now, but is there available land there that somebody could buy up tomorrow and then say, we're putting in a 2,000 home subdivision, and then all of a sudden we're faced 3 years down the road with, sorry, you have to do it again?
Are you talking about in Williams?
In Williams, Thomas, and I guess Arredondo, but mainly Thomas and Williams, if we did option 3.
So here is a zoom in of the Thomas area. I'll turn it on for you to look
She was
at.
saying they would give us land, right, for another school? Because George Foundation.
Let's see. So this is Arredondo. And if I turn that off so that you can see the development underneath, there's not a lot of land available for future development. We have marked the ones that we know like this, for example, is an apartment that is being planned verge of Summer Park, I think it says. Looks like verge. This is mixed use development. If I turn on the aerial, you can see this is, I didn't bring the parks layers with me, but this could be a park. I don't recall offhand what this is right next to Williams. But my point is that, beg your pardon?
The pasture.
Okay.
A space that large, based on the other subdivisions in that area, how many houses or how many students could average fit in a space like that? Just because I have no idea. I don't know. Is that 25? Is that 500?
44B is 200 students?
Yes, 250.
So that piece of land that's pasture, I mean, how many, if you were to just look at it and see, that'd be a couple hundred more potentially?
With the floodplain, I would say less.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a creek that runs through there.
And that's in 45D?
Yes. I'm going to look up to see if we have any other information on that.
I was looking for 45 days.
So
looking over here.
we have actually projected some housing already in the numbers that you're looking at.
Okay.
Some potential for development of that area.
So for some of the areas that are just pasture like that, that is taken into consideration that
Yes.
that may potentially become a subdivision, even if nobody's bought it yet, nothing like that.
That's
Okay.
right. And yes, even if there's no discussion of it, we just look at it and say, why wouldn't it eventually? We don't know when, but it could. And so, and we under-project in that case. So I don't remember the numbers, but it was low. It was probably maybe 100 homes that we projected spread out over the end of this projection period. So it could be many more. It could be, 200 or 300 homes. But we have to hedge our bets.
So we
But-
would still keep,
So let's go back to 3.
that would be Williams, and that would still keep us pretty close to the numbers, right?
So I would also say that the chances of having to move Summer Lakes back out of Williams is very low.
Which planning unit is that?
44B.
Okay.
Even if there's more development in 45D, like you were suggesting, because of the aging of the current students in the rest of Williams, and really all of the Great Woods schools are aging out and losing population. So everybody north of 2759 is those populations are declining in young students, and they have been for several years.
I was wondering about that because as far as road access, Dickinson and Velasquez are accessible. And I mean, it's really getting in the weeds, but we need to get in the weeds here.
They're
I mean,
accessible to whom?
Well, accessible to major roads is what I'm getting at. Is there any, have you played with those numbers of adjusting anything in and out of Dickinson or Velasquez?
I have not.
Because they're all these. I live in this area. I live in 44K, so I know these schools. And they're all so close to each other.
And those Great Woods schools were necessary
Yeah.
when they were built. Absolutely, they were full. But those homes are aging, and those families are staying in place, and they are not being turned over with younger families. And so the schools are aging out. To answer your question, I kept this as simple and as least disruptive as possible, but that is certainly something that can be considered, whether or not it's now or in a year for a rezoning. It's not out of the question to need to do some rezoning into some of those Great Woods schools. Campbell, Dickinson, and Velasquez.
And this needs to be completed by, this process for Phalen needs to be completed by when? It's opening in August, is that correct?
Correct. The plan is to have the committee, we'll meet with the committee and come back to the board with the recommendation and the ranking of those 3, or how many you choose, in the February board meeting. Because there are some moving pieces that need to occur after that.
So if you do, ma'am, playing with the numbers with Dickinson and Velasquez, we would not want to touch any of these zones if we approve option number 3 now, because that would be rezoning them a second time within a couple of years. Speaking clearly.
I would say that the opening of Phalen is the focus, and it's not necessary to touch the other schools in order to zone for the opening of Phalen. But if that becomes a board priority, we can look at those other schools, and you can do it now, or you can do it next year.
I hear what you're saying, and that's reflected in maps 1 and 2. But when you get to map 3, then we're starting to move into 5 different schools that are being affected,
Yes.
and that's
So if you want me to look at Campbell and
well.
Dickinson
I'm
and Velasquez.
thinking and processing out loud here. I'm just wondering. We got underutilized schools that are just a stone's throw away from this whole area that we're talking about, and I don't know if that should be a part of the conversation, or if that's too complex for we're gonna reshift 7 zones because one new school is gonna open.
Is that what you're suggesting? I think you're saying
I'm
that.
wondering, is that too difficult of a task to get it
I see.
right for one time in 10 years?
Right,
Say
right.
yes.
So to pull in those other campuses while we're rezoning Phalen and see how all those can be rezoned, including Phalen, so they're all under capacity, all at capacity or under.
Right, because we've gone from Phalen opening and affecting 3 schools to jumping to 5, and so now I'm saying, well, if we're gonna jump to 5, would not be more advantageous to jump to 7 and really solve this problem long term? That's what I'm throwing out for consideration. I don't know the answer to that. I have a second here already.
I haven't asked for a motion yet.
Well, that's surely to get the Lamar community's attention if we were to touch 7 different
Yeah,
schools
don't-
potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, your neighborhood is aging, and those schools are underutilized in Greatwood. For now, but it goes down over the years.
Are you asking for a motion?
Yeah, is there any more questions about 1, 2, or 3? Okay, so, let me come over here. Do I have, sorry, I've got so many pieces of paper at this point.
Can I make a motion?
You know what? You're welcome to.
I move that we approve the zoning options presented for consideration by the attendance boundary committee for Phalen Elementary School.
Which option?
Options 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, all 3?
Yes.
It doesn't have
I'm
to
just
be,
making
it could
sure.
be, it doesn't have to be, it's at the board's pleasure. You can send 1 option, 2 option, or all 3.
Options 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, is there any discussion?
Yeah, discussion. I think the committee should also be charged if there's really no consensus, the board really needs to hear that from the committee. If they vote to say, yeah, we'll go with option 3, but it was very divisive and no one's happy, I mean, we need to hear that. So I would ask that the administration throw that out for a possibility. I mean, we don't want to get in the zone situation we had with the secondary with having 21 different maps that the committee comes up with. But at the same time, we need to know, I mean, it feels like to me we should just be going with 1 or 3, but I don't know if, that's my piece of the discussion.
As far as, and so when you are running the show, Mr. Junty, correct?
Yes.
They will be, obviously they'll know that part of, if we approve, or if we send number 2 as well, that they will be breaking up a neighborhood with that
Yes.
choice?
Yeah,
That
we'll be able to clearly delineate the differences between the plans.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so all in favor, raise your hand, say aye. None opposed. You know what, I don't think when we came back in recess, that I made a note that Ms. Danziger is not in attendance anymore.
I noted it in my notes, but I don't believe you said it.
Okay, so, none opposed, so motion carries. All right, number 3.
Okay,
All right,
let's
and then the last one is just about Bowie and Beasley, and this is really just one recommendation that we're making, not really an option, but a recommendation that we're making this evening.
So as you know, Beasley is a very petite little school. It has a capacity for about 370 students. There are currently projected to have 450 students next fall. So we have, in last year's projections, we project that Beasley in 10 years will reach 780 students. Right? That's over twice its capacity. So the point of this tonight is to be a first step in starting to carve off some of the portions of the Beasley attendance zone to go to other schools in order to provide it some step-by-step relief without moving anybody twice. Let me also say that if you don't think that 211% utilization in 10 years is bad enough for Beasley, since we did the last study last year, we know of 2 other big developments that are happening in the Beasley attendance zone area that will increase these numbers even more. So it's happening, the land rush is on. One of these developments has created mud. They have an extensive land plan that they've worked with the city of Rosenberg. It's moving, it's going to happen, and so the overcrowding at Beasley is going to be even worse than it looks in these numbers.
Where is that big development?
It's a Land Tejas development, and it is right here. I know that doesn't mean much to you. This is
Well, I live out there, so it kind of
360.
does.
This is 360 here.
Okay, so it's actually in Beasley proper. Across,
Yes.
across from the truck stops there. No?
It's further down.
Oh, past 360?
Yes, this is
It's
360.
almost a Kindle.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see Darst Road now.
So our thinking was that the first step would be to carve off some of the, I have this, my apologies. This purple is the current Beasley attendance zone. It includes these 2 planning units on the north side of 59. This is spur 10 here. To give you some perspective, this is 90 alt 90. Believe it or not, there's not a big hole in the sinkhole in the ground. It actually does connect through, even though it's not part of Lamar CISD. So our proposal is that Bowie is underutilized. Bowie has some space, and there are some students in 8C. This is Planning Unit 8C, and this is Planning Unit 7. About 90 students, I think, that could be rezoned from Beasley into Bowie, and the zones could then look like this. And the transportation is comparable, and Beasley has room for it. And again, it would be the first step in giving Beasley some relief. Because this is the most obvious and sort of easiest, this is the only one that I have shown as an option. However, I did want to bring your attention to if you felt like we needed to pull some more kids out of Beasley, we could split a planning unit in that this is Daly Road, this is Spencer Road here, and so these dots are students that live along Daly Road and Spencer Road. I think there are about 33 students that live there that have good access to Alt 90 and could jump across the big crater in the earth here, drive outside of the district and back into the district to get over here to Bowie. If you felt like you wanted to send 30 more students
It's a long way.
over to Bowie, we could carve out this portion of the planning unit. It would look funny on the map, but
Yes,
that's okay.
yeah, it is.
You mentioned in the future, this is the first phase. Are they gonna be moved anyways eventually, that piece?
No, I can't say, but it's my opinion that everything on here in Beasley proper and north of 59 would probably stay in Beasley, unless you eventually moved it to Bowie. The parts that are going to need to be zoned out are south of 59.
So, in the last study, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't we projected to have or need another elementary out that way?
Yes, it was going to be over in 41C, hopefully around in this area in about, did we say 25? 25. And so yes, moving 41B into that future school could be a phase 2 of relieving Beasley. one of the potential developments is in 41B, so that could be a future school as well, although I'm not convinced it will be online by 25.
I think there's another one coming up in 41C as well.
Yes, several.
So do we have funding for the elementary schools that we're discussing now, the new ones?
We do.
They're not in the bond, so they need to be a part of a future bond.
That's correct.
And you said they need to be open by 2025?
And I might tell you next month that they need to be open earlier.
What was that last part?
I might tell you next month that they need to be open even earlier.
There's really not a reason to take that other piece.
So how many is Bowie over currently?
Bowie's
I mean, Beasley. I'm sorry.
about 80 over capacity next fall.
And how many are in 7 and 8C that we're moving or potentially move?
About 85.
So this would get them out of the portable business?
No, Beasley?
Yes.
Beasley is, I think, if we prove this, there'll still be like 1 or 2 students over capacity, I believe.
Maybe 3 students over.
Yes.
Right.
3 over?
And so, the question was, would this get them out of the portable business? It probably would short term. Maybe short term. Kevin, Chris.
We currently have portables there.
I know we just
Given
sent
that-
new portables there for restrooms outdoors, and
Correct.
so if this happened, what will happen to the current portables that are there now? Will we still need them there? Will we need to
Reduce some, but you would still need some there.
say that louder, please?
You can reduce it, but you would still need some there.
Because they really need the relief with the next elementary. That'll bring their numbers down.
Remember big development out in Hamilton area.
Right. I would say we probably would need to keep them all there, because if we need another elementary in that area in 2025, and we don't have the funding for it yet, we're probably not going to have it up by 2025. And we'll need some space.
This will
For those
allow us some
elementaries, for
additional
those students.
capacity for that growth to remain in place.
So that's really this is the best recommendation, except if we want to add that little piece, which they may never be rezoned anyway, so it doesn't. It's not gonna really,
So
I guess it would make them
the-
under
the
capacity.
only other option would be to move 41B south to, I guess, to Bowie, but it's only 35 to 50 students, and you're almost certainly going to have to move that neighborhood again in a few years.
Wow.
So will we have to have a committee for this, or is this something that we just decide? Because it's only one option.
I guess there's no reason for a committee if
There's no reason for a committee.
unless.
No, there's no need for a committee for this one, because it's just one option. What we would do now is, if the board approves it, then of course we will pull everyone together and have a conversation about what's coming forward and why it's coming forward.
Any further discussion? Okay, if hearing none, do I have a motion? A motion to approve the Beasley Elementary School and Bowie Elementary School attendance boundary change as presented? Ms. Brunzo makes a motion, Mr. Hunt, who seconded?
Well, no, I
Or
had a
did you have
question. I had a question. So are we, this
Oh,
is just
well,
getting.
let me second it,
Sure.
and then, so you're
I'll second
second, okay, so discussion.
This is just getting the ball rolling, then we're gonna have community input, then it's gonna come back to us and we're going to vote?
No.
No, sir, this is the vote for this, because
Okay.
this is the only option.
Cause I, in the board book, it says, given projected enrollment trends at Beasley and Bowie, a shift in attendance boundaries is proposed. Community input on the proposed shift will be solicited. A final recommendation will then be made to the Board of Trustees.
No, sir, that's a miss,
That's not the updated, this is an updated here.
Oh, there's a,
There you go.
oh. Well, all right.
I have another question though. Whenever the school opened up, I think it was Tamron that opened it. I believe it was you, Alex, that made a motion that either the 4th and 5th grade or just the 5th grade could stay at Lindsay, if I remember right. Is there any possibility if a parent wanted to transport their 5th grader, a current 4th grader who's going into 5th grade might stay at Beasley? Is there any, would that be recommended by the administration?
We would probably have to research that more and see what that number looks like. If they want to provide their own transportation and give them opportunity to be grandfathered in. I mean, of course, that's happened. We just have to see what those numbers look like. We can always come back to the board with new numbers to see if that's the board's desire to do that. We can do that.
Because I remember that was very important to you, and that was your area up there. So I would.
I think traditionally, because I remember when we did that usually we do 5th grade, and we did 4th and 5th grade for that circumstance because there was a section that had been at Huggins and then at Lindsay, and then they were going to Tamron. So we didn't want those students in 4th and 5th grade to be moved 3 times. But I remember in that discussion that we said usually we just do 5th grade, so that way a student doesn't have to go their entire time at one school and then for their final year move somewhere else, which I think makes sense.
So that one,
Can we look up how many 5th graders are at Beasley?
it's a good.
4th graders, sorry. 4th graders at Beasley, that would be 5th grade at Bowie. So what's the current 4th grade numbers at Beasley?
Well, that live in 7 and 8C.
Oh, that only live in 7 and 8C, because that's right. Thank you, Mr. Hubenak. We wouldn't know that. They only live in 7 and 8C unless Pasa has that number. She does.
Oh.
That's pretty impressive.
Or scared.
So what is?
I visited there in the spring. It's out there by itself. How-
16 current 4th graders,
16.
16. In those 2 areas proposed to be moved. They're highlighted there.
I recommend that we allow those 16 students to provide their own transportation if they wish to remain at Beasley for their 5th grade year. And I don't know how that needs to be amended.
No, the motion doesn't have to be amended because that's more of an administrative practice. Even though those students be zoned there, the district can still allow them to go. So that's more of an admin practice. So the motion can still stand on the floor.
And that's common practice that they would provide their own transportation, right? If they're being grandfathered in. Okay, so with that understanding, any further discussion? Okay.
So just so we give clear direction to the administration, that is the board's wish. That is my personal wish. So is everybody good with that?
Yes.
That's the direction we're giving the administration.
To
Okay.
be able to grandfather in the 5th graders
Grandfather
if
in
that's their
the current
desire.
4th graders
with
going
their
into
own
5th grade.
transportation, 5th graders only. Yes.
That wish is granted.
Okay, so I'll call for the vote. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed, motion carries. All right. So this completes our action items. We're now going into closed session. The time is 8:43 p.m. We're adjourning to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act, to discuss personnel, land acquisition, or consultation with our attorney.
Lambert have a meeting? Oh, she's very important. I don't doubt that.
Okay, so we are now back in open session, and it is, oh, thank you, 9:08 PM. We have a quorum with all members present except for Ms. Danziger. Do we have any motions to be made? Okay, the meeting is adjourned. It is 9:09 PM.